Hi, welcome to the Wonder Creative Podcast. I'm your host, Chloe Tilley. Today is a very exciting day because it is the first episode ever of the Wonder Creative Podcast, and I'm a little excited about it, so sorry in advance. But this is very exciting, and I'm really excited for you guys to join along with me in this journey. It's been a long time coming, man, and now the timing is finally right, and the stars have aligned, and now we're here. So thank you so much for all the support and for listening or watching if you're on YouTube. It really means so much to me. So the Wonder Creative Podcast is meant to be a source of inspiration, creativity, and joy in the lives of other creatives. So this is a place that I want to encourage you to nurture your imagination, which is like the fuel source for creativity, right? I want to help you and encourage you to pursue your dreams. I want you to run your business with purpose. And I really, above any of those things, I want you to live the life that you see for yourself, whether you are a creative that creates for a living or you're a creative that creates for fun. Whether you're creative and you don't think you're creative, you probably are. Spoiler alert, everyone is creative. Whether you're a business owner, we're definitely going to get into like a lot of businessy things. So I hope that this can be a way that I can serve you and be a resource for you. And as if you didn't listen to like the intro or the trailer, we're going to have guests on the podcast. It's going to be really exciting. But for today, we're just going to kind of get to know each other. So I am going to share a little bit of my background, kind of how I even got into design and my journey with creativity and where I'm at now and kind of what lies ahead. So I guess like I've always been creative. I was a very dramatic, theatrical child. I definitely, had a very big dream of going to Broadway, and I honestly probably still do. Like if I had the opportunity to audition for a Broadway musical tomorrow, I would do it 100%. But, life has its twists and turns. And so I ended up expressing my creativity in other ways as I got older. And then once I hit college, I was like, okay, well, I need to do something realistic. And so I went to school for public relations. I don't know what I was thinking because I guess I was just thinking about something that I could make a lot of money doing and I would be good at. And so that seemed like the feasible thing for me to do. But really it wasn't like my heart's desire and it wasn't very creative, it was just like public speaking for people. And, it did end up getting semi-creative when I got my first job out of college for a tourist attraction. It's called Rock City, and I grew up in Tennessee, so a lot of people in the South know what Rock City is. But anyway, I worked for them for a while, and I did their social media and some other, creative-y things. Like I dabbled in photography for them, and I was what was my title? I think I was public relations and social media coordinator. And then from there, I went on to a job that was a lot more corporate-y and was designing for them and was essentially like a marketing coordinator for them. So I really got my start with design with Canva and doing social media graphics. However, before even that, let's just backtrack a second. So this is going to take a little bit of a turn, but I just remembered something. I don't know if anybody remembers Zanga, and probably no one on the freaking planet remember Zanga. And I don't even, to be completely honest with you, I don't know how I discovered it. It must have been something that all my friends were doing or something, but it was like even before MySpace, there was Zanga, which that just, I guess, shows you how old I am. But it was like a website where you could build your own blog, essentially. That I think that's what it was supposed to be, was for blogging. But you could like code it and make it like your own and get templates and all that stuff. And hold on, I think that I remember a journal entry from my childhood that I was talking about my Zanga site. Hold on, I'm going to go find it just real quick. Okay, I found it. So here's the journal that I had. This is 2005, but it even goes into like 2008. So, but anyway, the only reason that I know that I had this in my journal was because I was just looking through old journals the other day. And when I read this, I thought it was hilarious because it reminded me that I've always had like that designer thing in me. So while to me, like it feels kind of random that I own a design business, it's like so not random because this was something that I even did whenever I was 13 and I loved it. So anyway, this is what the journal entry says. January 29th, 2005. Oh my gosh, guess what? I fixed my Zanga site with a skin that you usually have to buy with Zanga Premium, but I went to another site and got it for free. I'm so happy. Yeah. So I guess you could say that I've always had a thing for design. And I mean, it's kind of silly, like me reading that. But even like when MySpace came around, we all became web developers when MySpace came out with like custom skins and stuff. To all that remember MySpace, but I like really, really loved it. And then I had like a computer class in high school, and we had to code a website, like a landing page. And so I did just one based off of my personality. And I remember just loving that whole process of putting together a website, and designing it all and like the fonts and everything. And I even like with Word documents and stuff, like I was like, I've got to find the perfect font and I've got to have the perfect spacing. It was just the presentation of things that really, really mattered to me and the design of it all, you know? And so it's just interesting looking back on that and seeing how that manifested throughout my life. And then of course now, but anyway, back to my career. So, you know, I was doing the corporate marketing thing. And I was just kind of climbing the ladder. I was excited to grow in this company. And then I ended up getting laid off. They had some changes happen within the company. I had just had my son. I was 3 months postpartum, and I had no idea what the heck I was going to do because this was pandemic. So it wasn't very normal for people to be working at home. It wasn't normal for anyone to have any sort of flexibility in their job, honestly. And in my mind, it just felt so much easier to just start my own business instead of going out there and finding a job that would allow me to like be a mom and work at home. I just like, you know what? Everyone always says I need to start my own thing. So I'm just going to start my own thing. And I sat down on the couch one night. I bought the domain. I secured like the social handles and stuff. And I just thought Wonder Creative, it just popped into my head. And so I was like, okay, like that sounds good to me. And normally I would overthink, I would overthink it, but I don't know, like in that moment, it just kind of felt right. It felt like what I needed to do. And so I just did it. And honestly, I always say this, it is like the reason that I was able to do that is because I was completely naive, and I'm so thankful for that. If I had known the journey that was ahead, I probably wouldn't have done it. But in me being naive, I was able to just go after my dreams and not care about the how. I just focused on the dream and what it would feel like to own a business and what it would feel like to be a CEO and to work from home and all that stuff. And of course, like I was, what's that word? I was idealizing it or whatever in my brain, but I really feel like that's what protected me from the imposter syndrome and all the other things that could have crept in and just quenched it, and not allowed me to actually start the business. So I started the business, and it was just a creative agency. Like, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I honestly didn't feel good at design, like good enough at design, but I just kind of went for it. And I was like, I'll run your social media. I'll create you a flyer. I'll do whatever, I didn't really have a goal or a niche. And so that was a terrible idea because I was essentially not getting any business. No one really knew how they could work with me. So I just quickly realized that I was going to have to really do some soul searching and decide like what I wanted to be known by. But it just so happened that I had a friend, and she was a photographer, and she needed a website and a brand, so to speak. She had a logo that was created and she loved it, but she needed more of like some branding surrounding that logo so that she could have a website. And then she also needed the website built. And so I really wanted to help her. I always said that I would never, ever, ever do websites because they're just so involved. And it was not something that I really wanted to do or felt, again, like I didn't feel confident in my own abilities. And so I was afraid to commit to something like a website. But I really wanted to help her. And so I did some research, and I came across some other like brand and web designers who create for other creatives and photographers, and they create, using this web builder called Show It. But it was a major game changer. And that was what sent me into this niche that I'm kind of in right now, which is brand and web design for creatives. And I, got into Show It. And for anyone that's not really familiar with like what a web builder is, where you build the design and develop it and publish it to the internet. So there's some out there there's one called Wix, there's WordPress, there's Show It. They all have their pros and cons. But Show It, the reason why I loved it so much was because wherever I wanted to put something, it would go there. There's so much creativity that you can have with a project because you don't have boxes, you don't have, templates or layouts that you have to work within. Like, you can create whatever you want to create. And so that just that openness was so attractive to me. And so I just started creating, and I loved it so much. And so Kaylee, if you're listening to this, thank you so much for being such an amazing client and trusting me. You were such a catalyst for all the things that were to come in my business. Like, it's just crazy. It's crazy how things like that happen. Anyway, so that was how my whole journey with brand and web started. And from there, I just, once I published a site, I published Kaylee's site. And then from there, I had a client reach out because they saw that site, wanted to work with me. And then just the same thing kept happening. I would, launch a site, promote it on my Instagram, and then somebody else would reach out either through a client referral or they would have seen my stuff on Instagram. And this was back in 2019 and 2020. 2020 was actually one of the greatest years of my business ever, which is, probably because people were stuck at home and they were, using this time to invest in their businesses and stuff. So that was a really big year. And then also last year was a really big year for me as far as projects. And so we'll get more into that in another episode, but that's essentially like how I just kept going in my business. I was just publishing sites and slowly kind of, getting better and better and learning as I went along. I would say that it's not something that I always saw myself doing, but now that I'm doing it, I never could see myself not doing it. And it's just become something that I really enjoy expressing myself, and then also expressing the heart of my clients. That's the biggest thing to me, is just letting them shine and bringing all of their visions to life. Like there's nothing better than that. With, where I'm at now, this year is a big year, I think, for Wonder Creative. I've gone through a lot of highs and lows as a business owner. And I think any business owner would agree that there are highs and lows, and not everything goes the way that you plan or the way that you think in the beginning, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. And I think if you can just kind of honor every step in the journey and like really, I guess, just like take it in, like understand where you are in your journey. And don't compare yourself to someone who's further along. Like that doesn't make any sense. You are where you are, but you are going to where they are, like you will get there eventually. And so it's really like, you just can't compare. You just cannot compare yourself to other people, because it's just not accurate, and especially on social media, but I'm not going to get into that. So as of right now, with where things are in my business, I have spent the past 4 years pretty much overthinking everything in my business. And it is exhausting. I think any business owner can be like, yeah, I feel you. Like, I know exactly what you mean. Because you're just like, there's just so many things to think about. There's so many decisions to be made. Especially in these early years of business. But I think I'm finally at this place where I'm just entertaining what would it be like to not overthink everything, just to think a normal, healthy amount, and just trust my creative instincts. Because that's what I did in the beginning, like back to the, full circle. When I sat down on the couch, I just had this instinct, this creative unction, if you will, this inspiration. And, of course, like my faith plays a huge role in everything that I do. So I know that it was God leading me in that moment too, but it was us, it was together, like we were together in that moment. And so, but anyway, I just think to myself, like, what would it be like to really trust those creative unctions, to really lean into like the wild inspiration and just go for it and not overthink it. Because I think the moment that we try to reason with it, we lose it. I don't want to do that. And I think it's something that's held me back. But even then, it's been grace that none of this happened before now, because I feel ready now. Like I just feel excited. Like I just want to get this out there. Even as I'm recording this, I'm just thinking, I'm so ready to get this out there. It's just so exciting to be able to do something and not feel any kind of fear, or any sort of like second guessing, and that's where I'm at. Like that's the vibe, if you will, for 2023 for Wonder Creative, is just don't think, just do it. And so, I think I'm at a place where I can trust myself, and that feels good. For future episodes, the next episode that you'll hear is my 2022 year in review, an honest year in review, because we're committed to the authentic here. I'm not going to paint a picture that is not real, ever. And so we're going to talk through, I'm actually interested to dive into those details, because that last year was such an important year for my business, especially even just with projects alone. Like some of the most iconic things were created last year for, brands that we've created. So I'm just really, really excited to kind of dive into that. And then we'll also be having an episode with my husband. You'll get to meet him and kind of hear from him, as he is also very much a part of Wonder Creative. You just never see him. Thank you so much for listening today. I want to keep this as conversational as possible because, number one, I don't want to do a ton of editing right now because I am doing this all myself. And number two, like I said before, I'm committed to the authentic. If I try to make this something that's super polished, that I have to get myself together for every single week, it's going to just become a drag to me. And I want to keep it alive and thriving and exciting and real, not only for myself, but for you too. I don't want to paint a picture that's not real. That's kind of the whole point of this podcast. We're going to talk about the real side of life, creativity, and business, the real stuff. So that's really exciting. Thank you for listening today, guys. I really appreciate you. Leave a comment on YouTube if you can, and introduce yourself, and I'll catch you on the next episode.